So we're finishing up today a 4 series of avatars. I had some interesting emails around this week. One was, why don't you do this format for the teachings of Jesus? And I thought, well, that would be a challenge for me. I've been studying those red words for 20 years, so to get down to 10 or 12. But it's one that I'm going to take on later. But the second one came from my beloved, who said to me, why don't you have any women avatars? I have no idea why not. That one's going to take a little bit more research and study, which I've started, by the way, and there's amazing women avatars. But, you know, back in the day, they didn't get to publish much. A whole lot of them didn't even get to read. But there are some incredible things being published, so that's a series that I'm looking to do sometime in the summer, the Women Avatar series. And I'm excited about it because it's brand new for me, and I'm already learning from it. By the way, do you know why Buddha's belly is always way out? Buddha belly, you know why? What it signifies? It signifies being that relaxed in the physical that you can breathe freely without trying to hold your belly in. Now, I know no one around here goes around all day holding their belly in. But it's a really interesting teaching because we are uptight in America. And part of the reason we're so uptight is we're holding our bellies in. And he's just let it all hang out. Relax, breathe into that. Breathe into your belly. And as you relax your body, your breathing relaxes, your mind relaxes, your emotions relax. Pretty interesting teaching. That's why you see the big Buddha belly. In this series, we started with this question. If God, if the creative principle of the universe is truly present everywhere and is all knowledge, then it has to show up through the history. And what we've been able to see, and there's some really key pieces that dovetail together with all the avatars, teach the same things. And we went back as far as over 5,000 years ago. What I'm excited about starting next week is we're going to move into what's being taught in science today. And the very same thesis holds, everywhere present all knowledge, then we should see this golden thread through the avatars of 5,000 years ago to what's happening today in science. And that's what we're going to be looking for as we go through Deepak Chopra's book. So we started with Shankara, was the yoga of non-dualism, which we know it means the union with God of oneness. He ended kind of with this theme, I am He. He got it, that He truly is God within, and began to live from that place. We had Lao Tzu from China, who says, get in the flow. He was so much in the flow, he got on the ox or the water buffalo backwards so that he couldn't see what was coming during the day. I don't know about you, but this is a level of trust I haven't seen often in my life, but it's something that I aspire to be able to get up every day and not look and try to anticipate the flow of the divine coming towards you. Deep, deep trust. And then last week we had Krishna, who basically summed up, he says that it's all good. Everything that came in the past is good, everything that's coming in the present is good, everything that will ever come in the future, it's all good. You begin to see how much New Thought and Charles and Myrtle Fillmore studied the avatars. We have heard this as part of unity, that God is only good. Well, we've seen it through all these different avatars and through all those thousands of years. What about Buddha? Well, Buddha is so different than the other avatars we study because all the other avatars started very lowly in the economic scale of life. Not Buddha. He started at the other end. He was a prince. His father was king in Nepal, and he made sure that Buddha saw no human suffering. He led a lavish, opulent life in total peace and harmony. But there's some very interesting things about Buddha. By the way, it was right on the border of Nepal and India. His mother died 7 days after he was born. And I found that so interesting because 7 metaphysically symbolizes physical completion. And my question was Buddha being born physically complete, or was his mother? I don't know. But I'm also wondering if maybe his father built this life around him of perfection because of this experience at 7 days old. I don't know. Those are just thoughts that came up. He got married at 16, had a son, and then he left everything at 29 when he happened to get outside of the palace and began to see human suffering. So his whole journey was not about himself. This is where sometimes I think there's some bad teaching. Buddha's journey was find the secret, the solution to solve human suffering in the world. He wanted everyone to live as he grew up. But what happened was once he was introduced to suffering, human suffering, he no longer was at peace and harmony. And he scurried all over India looking for teachers. 6 years he spent. 6 years he spent as an ascetic. Ascetic is those people who believe that the body causes our suffering. And they do all kinds of really intense things to their own bodies. Beat it, burn it, starve it, bury it, anything to try to get away from the human suffering that they believe has been created out of the body. What Buddha found is it wasn't true. He did that for 6 years, and he found that he was still suffering where? Not in his body, but where? His mind. So what did he do? He said, well, this isn't working. I think he heard about Einstein. Says if you keep doing the same thing over and over again, that's insanity. He said, I need to change it up. So he went and sat under a Bodhi tree and said, I am not moving until I get the secret. Now that's dedication, right? Right about the time when he was about to have his awakening, he was attacked by a demon, Mara, to steal his enlightenment, to steal his awakening. Where did Mara come from? But have you noticed how many of our avatars have been attacked right before the awakening, right before the enlightening? It kind of fits in with the saying, it's the darkest before the dawn. And he held steady and he kept silent and he awakened. He became the awakened one. Awakened one is also the Christed one. We've seen that. So we've got Krishna consciousness, we have Buddha consciousness, we have Christ consciousness, all meaning exactly the same thing. One truth, many voices. He went on to preach his Dharma, which is his teachings, and he died at 80 in India. And went on to father this Buddhist movement, which is huge in the world. Right on his deathbed, he told his followers this: follow no leader, be your own light. Follow no leader, be your own light. But unfortunately, as most religions, because religions are human-made, then we had to have other teachings, just like we did with the Christ or with Krishna, which is about building religions and about building empires for human beings and human egos. And some of this teaching got lost. But what Buddha discovered was these 4 noble truths. And remember, what he's looking for is how to find this secret to stop the suffering in the humans. And as you can see through the truth of suffering, where's the origin? What does it look like on the other side? But what's so important here is the 4th noble is the path to go beyond suffering. And that becomes all of Buddha's teachings for us. And remember, when you looked at those dates, this is 550 years before Jesus. And you know, it's interesting, you know, I'm always trying to put things in context so I can understand it. And I was like, well, we throw these years around like they're nothing. 550 years. I subtracted 550 years from today. The earth was still flat. Everyone but one person believed that was true. So sometimes we have to put this in context to understand how far ahead of Jesus was the Buddha teaching. But from here and looking at what is the path of non-suffering, he delivered the eightfold path. Guidance for you and I. Ask this question all day long. Ask this question all life long. Do I have the right view? Do I have the right intention? Do I have the right speech? Do I have the right action? Do I have the right livelihood? Do I have the right effort, the right concentration, and the right mindfulness? Believing that these eight folds will keep us on this path to move beyond, to transcend the human bondage, the human suffering. These are good questions for all of us to ask every day. It will keep us in alignment with the path of awakening, the path of enlightenment, which is exactly the teaching of all four of these avatars and anyone who else is enlightened or awakened out of the human suffering and bondage. Only you can answer these. Because you know in your heart, you know in your soul, is it right? And you also know when it's not. And that is the guidance, he says, that brings us back onto the path. A couple things that Buddha is known for: with our thoughts, we make our world. This is not new news to us, is it? How many times have we heard this over and over again? Every avatar talks about this. This is the one I just love. No one can save you but yourself. No one can, and no one may. We walk this path alone. I was so taken here by Paul's teaching to the Philippians. He said, work out your own salvation. We're seeing the same teaching coming 550 years later. There is no one coming to save you and me, but you and me. Work out your own salvation. You create your own hell and your own heaven, as I do. So I took this, I made Buddha's to-do list, which is a wonderful teachings, because what I love about this is it's what he called the 10 wholesome actions. So remember, in the Four Noble Truths, the path to be able to move beyond human suffering is what he called the 10 wholesome actions. These are the actions that you and I get to take. Practical spirituality 2,600 years ago. And you're going to see the dovetail here with Emma Curtis Hopkins, with Charles and Myrtle Fillmore, with most of the New Thought teachers who obviously have studied what Buddha taught. So let's take a look. Celebrate life. Buddha said this: life is like a book. Some days it's exciting, some days not so much. But the key here is if you don't turn the page, you will never know what the next chapter is. This falls so in line with what Krishna was saying, and Shankara, and also Lao Tzu talked about how we embrace change. Life is change. This was 2,500 years ago. Can you imagine how fast change is coming today compared to when Buddha was under the Bodhi tree? It's happening in nanoseconds and just coming at us so fast. But we see time and time again the avatars say, we've got to embrace change, or otherwise you are going to be in the suffering side and not the path. One moment can change a life, one day can change a life, and one life can change the world. You know, it's an interesting doing this Buddha teaching today, because we could almost just have me be quiet and just bring up the PowerPoint slides. His teachings were so powerful, and they were condensed into so few words which is always to me the sign of the genius. Number 2 on his list is practice generosity. What does generosity mean to you? I want you to hold that thought. What does generosity mean to you? Let me show you what he said. Attention is the rarest and purest form of generosity. Attention. I think it's true of attention. Attention and focus kind of go together, do they not? Focus and attention is one of the rarest forms of generosity to who? To other people? To your path? To principles? But as I contemplated this week, I thought, this is also generosity to the divine, to God, to Source. Where's our focus? Where's our attention? And wherever that is where we are putting out our generosity. Interesting concept. Buddha said this, conquer anger with non-anger. Conquer badness with goodness. Conquer meanness with generosity. Conquer dishonesty with truth. How different would our world be today if we could just follow this? Be hugely different. Actually, when I sat there and tried to envision what that would look like, it was difficult. And that's why Buddha and Krishna and Shankara all said, but that's the illusion. That's Maya. That's the dream. Be in the reality of true divine love. This was interesting that he picked this out. Practice intimacy. I don't know about you, but for me, intimacy has a physical connotation to it. Watch what Buddha did with intimacy. Intimacy is not purely physical. It's the act of connecting with someone so deeply you feel like you can see into their soul. That's way beyond physical, is it not? And I don't know about you, but I've only had a couple connections where I really felt that in my life. I've said this, I met 2 teachers that emanated the energy that I thought would come from Jesus. But each and every one of us can practice this. Not by looking at the physical, where's the window to their souls? Through the eyes. How many of us go through Namaste and just go hug, hi? I'm glad you're here, hi. Good, hi. How many of us are looking into the eyes to their soul and feeling that connection? Soul to soul. Consciousness to consciousness. The true person. Not the mirage. Not the physical, but the soul. He said there are 4 things in life, if we don't have these, our life has no meaning. Love, honesty, truth, and respect. He repeats these over and over and over in his teachings. Love, honesty, truth, and respect. Speaking the truth, number 4. Some of you have read Byron Katie's book. She obviously took a piece from this, from Buddha, but where he said that before you speak, pass the words through. Is it true? Is it kind? Is it kind? You know, Byron Katie's, I think, was, is it true? Is it beautiful? Is it good? But these are good filters for all of us before we open our mouth. To go through and say, wait a minute, let me hear what I'm about to say. Let me feel what I'm about to say to someone else. If you don't hear it with your own ears or see it with your own eyes, then don't gossip with your mouth. Whoa. How much time do we spend in he said, she said, and third-party stuff in our lives? And Buddha's saying, don't. Don't do it. Keep your mouth shut. Unless you see it, unless you hear it, don't speak it. 3 things cannot be long hidden: the sun, the moon, and the truth. This whole concept of truth runs through everything he teaches. And he's saying, if you want to be on the path to get out of human suffering, out of the human bondage of the ego, of the mind, of the rational human mind, we have to get back to what is true. And truth he defines the same way Jesus does. It's absolute. Always true. And if we stay focused on that, it will keep us on that path of the 10 worthwhiles. This was an interesting one for me. A painful truth is always better than a hidden lie. Wow. How many times have I held back not to say the truth because I didn't want to hurt their feelings? Buddha said, no. Either keep your mouth shut, Dan, or tell the painful truth. And he gave no other options between that when it comes to speaking the truth. Number 5, he went on further with this, is speak positive words, and he talks about karma. Karma is what you think, what you speak, and what you do. And it's coming back to you. The Bible says this law will not be mocked. There it's called the law: you reap or you harvest what you sow. In psychology, we call it the law of cause and effect. These are all same words for the very same process. And he says again and again, it's exactly what we heard when I spoke of the scripture: it will not be mocked. It is perfect, and it grinds slowly to whatever you think, whatever you say, and what you act is all coming back. I call it the boomerang universe. Will not be mocked. Anger is the number one negative issue that Buddha talks about over and over again. And he said in this one, holding on to anger is like grasping a hot coal, intent on throwing it on someone else, and you get burned. There is a teaching in every avatar we've had of looking inside, and where is the anger? Anger at who? Anger at God? At yourself? Or others? It doesn't matter. It's all anger. And they tell us time and time again, drop it. Because it's only affecting you. Speak kindly. Number 6. To be kind is more important than to be right. How many of us get locked into wanting to be right? Come on now. Y'all ain't telling the truth. We just talked about truth. Yeah, we all want to be right, don't we? Is that from spirit or from ego? And what Buddha's saying here is drop it. Be kind. More important than being right. It says begin each day in solitude, in gratitude and generosity, and end every day in forgiveness. Think right now where you are in your life if you had just implemented this from the get-go. If you had started every day in gratitude and generosity and ended every day of your life in forgiveness, I bet you'd sleep better, don't you think? Yeah, these are great practical teachings. As we implement them, you can see how he's guiding us onto the path. Hate is not conquered by hate. Hate is conquered by love. This is a law eternal. Think where the world would be today if we could learn how to do this. We would have no wars. We would have no wars. Ever again. Number 7, practice silence within and without. Never respond to rudeness. When people are rude to you, they reveal who they are, not who you are. Don't take it personally. Be silent. Be silent. It's their stuff. It's not yours. Let it go. It'll drop down into the energy of nothingness that their rudeness is. Don't get entangled in it. Let it go by. When you build in silence, they don't even know what to attack. Silence is again and again spoken by Buddha. Stay silent, stay sacred, stay secret within you. Do the work in your consciousness, do the work in your being, and keep your mouth shut. It's great teaching for all of us. Open your mouth only if what you're going to say is more beautiful than silence. Whoa. I saw a few eyebrows go up on that one today. What a great rule, huh? Only open our mouth when it's more beautiful than the silence within you. And finally, on this stop, do not speak, Buddha said. The ultimate truth is not even to think. To not even think. Transcend human thought is the way from suffering. Is the way from the bondage that we put ourselves in the prison of our own minds. Don't speak. Get silent. Cultivating abundance. To live a pure, unselfish life, one must count nothing as one's own in the midst of abundance. It's Lao Tzu on the water buffalo backwards again. Pay it no thought, Jesus said. Take no thought for your life. Be in the flow. Let it unfold. When we add I, me, and mine, we are now engaged. It's no longer divine abundance. It's human ego. Each morning we are born again. We all wanted to be born again, didn't we? You are. Someone says, are you a born-again lunatic? Yep. Every morning, we're born again. And what we do today is what matters most. Why? Because there is only now. There is no past. And there is no future. The future is now, sometime later. And what Buddha's saying over and over again, what you're doing in this now will determine your future. It will determine your tomorrows. So we wake up every day with a brand new slate to color it in, to make the picture of the day that you want to be. Do you want to be in suffering and bondage, or do you want to be free and happy? It's up to you. Life is about balance. Be kind, but don't let people abuse you. Trust, but don't get deceived. Be content, but never stop improving yourself. Great teachings. The same teachings that Jesus was talking about humility. I of myself can do nothing. The Father within, the source within, the Spirit within does this work. This is not about being a doormat and letting people walk on you at all. These are about being so powerful with the Spirit within you that you are not engaged and entangled in their stuff. Stay centered. Stay silent. Not engaged in the ego entanglement. Don't try to rush things that need time to grow. Anybody here like me? I want that tomorrow. Come on, let's go. No, everything takes its time. Let it take its time for whatever it needs to do. 9 is cultivate benevolence. There's no enemy outside of you and I. The real enemy lives inside of us. Anger, here it is again, anger, ego, greed, and hate. There's no other enemies you and I have, except the ones that we're holding on to within ourselves. And Buddha says over and over again, you got to let those go. You got to drop those so that you can get back in the flow of life. Your mind is a magnet. If you think of blessings, you attract blessings. I love this. Your mind is a magnet. It's karma turned positive. It's what you sow, you reap. If you think of blessings, you attract blessings. If you think of problems, you attract what? More problems. Always cultivate good thoughts and remain positive and optimistic. This is why I love where Unity are saying now is it's a positive path to spiritual living. It doesn't get any better than that, and it's exactly in alignment with all these Avatar teachings. Use your voice for kindness, your ears for compassion, your hands for charity, and your mind for truth, and your heart for love. True charity occurs only when there are no notions of giving, giver, and gift. This is exactly in alignment with what Jesus taught, is do it in secret. Then you'll be blessed in the outside. If you do it and get your name up on top of the list and look at what I did, that's all the blessings you get. With no mind for giving, giver, or the gift. Finally, clarity. A man asked Buddha, I want happiness. Buddha says, remove I, it's ego. Remove want, it's desire. Now you're happy. The only thing left is happiness. But what he's saying in this story is what stops us is I, ego, want, desire. We are immediately into attachment and entanglements, and we'll never get to happy. But just let it all go. And you're left with only one thing, true happiness. The root of suffering is attachment. I use the word entanglement. It's getting entangled in this is mine. This is as soon as we use the words I, me, or mine, this is my whatever. We become exclusive and we begin to suffer. Suffering happens when we have no attachments. We get on the water buffalo backwards and let what unfolds, and open it with a good and cheerful heart. That's how those who don't suffer enter life today with all the change that's coming. There is no path to happiness. Happiness is the path, Buddha said. There's no path to happiness. It is the path. Be happy, and you're on the path. If you're not happy, you ain't on the path. Who gets to choose? And you do. Trust is like paper. Once it's crumbled, it can't be perfect again. Honor trust. Honor your trust with other people. Honor trust with yourself. Honor trust with the divine. If you make a commitment that you're going to be there, be there. That's how you build trust. And when it's crumbled, it'll never be perfect again. Stop trying to calm the storm. Calm yourself. The storm will pass. How much work do we run around trying to calm the storm? Buddha said, no. Get quiet, get centered, and guess what? There is no storm. And finally, Buddha said this, in the end, only three things matter. How much you loved, how gently you lived, and how gracefully you let go of the things that are not meant for you. How many times do we get ourselves entangled, attached to stuff that isn't ours to do? That is not the path to happiness. That is not the path to freedom. It's the path the other way. And I had to end this one with Buddha. Be happy. You never know how much time you have left. None of us do. I don't know about you, but I want to spend mine in happiness. And I hope that you do too. Let's go to stillness. Let's just take a couple deep breaths. And just as we did in this morning's prayer, opening up to the Christ consciousness, we can open up to the Buddha nature, the Buddha mind. And as we take a couple deep breaths and go inside into the divine within us, it doesn't matter whether you call it the Christ or you call it Buddha, because it's the same energy. It's the same spirit. It's the spirit of freedom and of peace and of love and of joy and of kindness and harmony and trust. Open up to that. Open up to the Buddha nature and let that light begin to flow through your mind into your heart. Say yes. Yes today. I don't want to talk about it anymore. I don't want to read about it. I don't want to listen about it. I want to feel it. Let me feel the Buddha nature within my very soul, within my consciousness, within my being.